Jen, can you talk in your
Sure.
mic?
This is Jen Briney.
Good.
Andrew, I hurt myself like an old hag.
I figured. What'd you do?
I slept. I woke up and now I can't turn my head to the left.
Oh, that's the whenever you get injuries in life, it's never for anything cool. It's never like, what happened? Oh, well, I was paragliding and I broke my leg on a mountain. It's always, I was laughing really hard at Herman's head and a bit of carrot flew out of my mouth and I bent over to pick it up and I threw my back out. That's every injury in the basic form.
Yeah.
Jen, your favorite episode of Herman's Head, go.
Who the fuck watches Herman's Head? I can't believe we now have 2 Herman's Head references on this podcast.
Wait, what was the other one?
We had one, and both of us were like, Herman. It was when we were in our Airbnb. I remember us making fun of Andrew.
It's
For Herman's Head. No, I love Herman's Head. And by the way, a prescient show. It really was the foundation for Inside Out, which is now a global family phenomenon, but it was the same idea.
Quick production note, you are not in the shot at all.
That is not true. It's just where it's cropped in what we are seeing right now. So that's
Okay.
why
Jen, I can see Justin right now. I think you owe him an apology.
Yeah. So if we minimize Heaton and maximize us, then you can see that we are both in the frame.
That was originally going to be the title of the program, Minimize Heaton and Maximize Us, but I put up a holy shit fit and got that stopped.
Well, I just know that because my dad watches these, and he gave me notes once when he couldn't see our faces, and I just don't want any more notes from Mr.
Well, that
Clark.
was when the mics were in our faces, right?
No, like it was something like this, where we were doing something remote, and he couldn't see you and I.
Oh, that might have been actually the Airbnb in Milwaukee where the camera kept wandering off.
Oh, that's right. Where we had a ghost cameraman operating.
Yeah,
I remember
loved Heaton. It was just like his only note was, "Why aren't we focusing more on Heaton?"
Yeah, robots like me. I don't know why, but robots are very attracted to me.
Lucky man. In the age of AI.
Mm-hmm. I got a gift this week. In fact, yesterday, the lovely, amazing people at C-SPAN sent my newborn daughter a custom onesie.
Stop it.
That says "Future C-SPAN Fan," and then has "Young" on the back of it.
I love them so much.
Custom onesie for little Bella.
That's amazing.
So C-SPAN, and look, we've actually, I mean, we've gotten communicated a lot behind the scenes. Let me just make it clear. I don't know if we've said this out loud, but listeners to this show, PX3, Congressional Dish, Political Orphanage, all of which were shouted out by C-SPAN specifically in their global newsletter that they went out for their fundraising drive. It mattered. It very much mattered to them, and I think that it, based on the commentary that I've heard, they're in a big transition period where they got to figure out how much they can raise from the public that value C-SPAN, because cord cutting is taking away the cable model, and this was their first foray into it, and you guys gave them the faith that, I will say it in the in the hyperbolic way that will generate more funds for them, keep C-SPAN alive, because that is the existential question. So thank you to everybody who donated. That's the reason why my daughter got a onesie.
Yes. Thank you so much for doing that. And just the people at C-SPAN are so wonderful. Like, it's so nice to actually get to meet them and know that they are who they say they are.
Oh my God. It's like, it's almost as if a parody of, like, you would imagine based on the product, the people that are behind the scenes are exactly the way that they are. And that's not normally the case. Like, the people at Fox News are behind the scenes probably remarkably like the people at CNN and MSNBC. They're television professionals that are trying to light and shoot things the exact same way. C-SPAN, no, they're exactly who you think. They are just an organic mom and pop jam stall in a farmer's market that is giving you exactly the wholesome content that you have known from C-SPAN forever. They are the best.
Yeah. Pure of heart. I love them all. They have a new CEO now, too.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. Big changes over there. But hopefully all for the best. Heaton, how has Edinburgh treated you? You only have a few, like a week and a half left, right?
Oh, less than that. I come down by train to London on Saturday and then fly out Monday for Texas. So I'm on the home stretch now. But it's been very nice. It's been fun. I'm back in my groove, seeing lots of friends, and I'm giving a talk at the Royal Scots Club tonight. I believe it is entitled "Make It Less Crazy." An American comedian explains the election, something like that. So, like, I'm doing what I'm really good at, which is playing a rogue ambassador to the United Kingdom.
A rogue American ambassador to the United Kingdom.
Exactly.
Yeah,
because that's like a lot of what I do over here when I hang out is just sit down next to guys in suits and they go, "Excuse me, what's happening with guns? What's that about?"
Yeah,
and it's my job to be able to speak British well enough to communicate it where they're like, "Oh, I disagree with that, but I feel slightly more clear. Thank you."
You should just set up a stall. Like, you should just be out on the street, just ask an American 5 pence.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah, 1 shilling. Ask the American. Yeah.
Actually, that would be amazing content if you recorded it. Just random man on the streets.
That's actually really. You know what? Yeah, because a lot of the time I don't do man on the street stuff, or I'm hesitant to do it because I don't like making people look stupid. But I think just the kind of questions British people would want to know would actually be really intriguing. Of just people going up and like, what like, as opposed to me asking them like, "Do you know where Myanmar is?" And they don't know where Myanmar is, and I make them look dumb. Where they're just like again and again asking like, I don't know, what do we think of Manitoba, or like, how did you let Mark Robinson? I don't know what they would be asking. My guess is guns, Israel, and Trump is my guess, but it would be interesting.
Yeah, you never know. I think it's an experiment worth doing if you have the time.
Yeah. Next
My
time.
favorite thing with British people in America is to ask them to do an American accent, because it falls into like 3 buckets.
Yeah.
They either do a New York, like, "Hey, I'm walking here" accent, or they do a big exaggerated Southern accent, or they do a Valley Girl accent. But I think it kind of tells you something about them to know what they think the American accent is.
Yeah, and they're usually bad at it. Like, my experience is British people are either perfect at getting an American accent, in which case they're probably an Academy Award nominated actor, or they have this horrible fake Texan accent that is just claws on a chalkboard. Like, I went to a play in Edinburgh years ago called "I Was Star Trek," the Gene Roddenberry story, and the William Shatner impression was, "Hi, I'm William Shatner." I was like, you're not doing it right. I play Captain Kirk on Star Trek. I have a very big ego.
It was a hot summer day when Gene came to me and said, "William, you're going to need to play Captain Kirk."
Do you do your Scottish accent to their faces? What do they think about it?
They're impressed. They actually think it's pretty good. But I think that's because Americans are bad at Scottish accents, because our understanding of Scottish accents is 95%. Yeah, Mike Myers, Groundskeeper Willie, or James Doohan, who played Scotty on Star Trek. Like, most Americans have never actually heard a Scottish accent, so I'm passable.
There you go.
Yeah, the accent that I love the most in the UK is the northern accent, which is very distinct from the London dialect. There's a billion dialects.
Right.
Everybody in the UK will very pointedly point out. Like,
there's the Mancunians and the filthy Geordies and several other Liverpudlians.
It's like, no, that's the Sussex upon Eastern-Tyne accent. Get out of here. But the northern, the broadly speaking northern accent is the one that I would always really like.
Nicely, isn't it? It's a bit like that then. Yeah, we could go up there, huh? Yeah. You show a little bit of your front teeth when you do it.
It's amazing. It's so good. That and the posh London, like, well, you know, like that. That's another good one that I
That's
really
my
like.
favorite.
Yeah,
my favorite's the ridiculous one where the word yes is the word ears. So, like, watch this.
What is that?
As we could. Yes.
That is an accent that through money and inbreeding has you've lost the Y at some point. Much like part of the chromosome, you've lost the Y in yes.
Yeah, and I find that when I'm over here too, that like my theory is if you apply time and money to Scots, they become English. Because I'll end up running into older Scots, and I'll like this. A couple of years ago, there was a lady here, and I was like, "Sally, I'm trying to place your accent. I think you're probably from the home counties." And she was like, "Oh no, I grew up 2 blocks from here, Scottish to my core." And I was like, "Well, then you have a lot of money because you don't sound it."
That is, I wonder if it is, just baked in code switching, because how you sound and how you dress is so much more of a part of the UK culture. At least I felt like when I'm over there, that there's, in America it's almost like a badge of honor if you're a billionaire, if you're an oil billionaire and you go up to Martha's Vineyard, you're not going to try and do a New England accent. You're going to come in and say, "Well, howdy, boy." You're going to LBJ it. And you're just gonna say, "Hey, look, I got money, you got money, whatever. You can hate me or not, it doesn't matter. We're just gonna roll on." Whereas in the more the rigid class structure of the UK, if you have money, even if you do have money, you're gonna get frozen out of polite society unless you kind of do the Bartman a little bit based on who you want to hang out with.
I've been fucking up really bad. Like I only realized this last year. Like, I look passably British if you're looking at me, right? Like, or let me rephrase this. I look like what a guy in Oklahoma thinks British people look like.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
So I did that for a long time. I wasn't trying to be sneaky or anything, but I'd kind of enjoy leaning into that identity. And it finally occurred to me, people like it way more when I'm Oklahoman over here. Like, I got a bagel a couple of days ago, and I was like, "How long's this been here? I've been coming here for 15 years. You could just see the guy's face light up when this caricature walked into the room. People love benign stereotypes, and I have been depriving them of that.
Oh, man, no. That's, I don't know. I have found, at least traveling throughout Europe, that the best thing to be is out and out front American. And it's way easier, even if they don't like America. It just invites and lances the boil of, "Hey, can I just please give you my America opinions up front?" And I'm like, "Sure, man."
Yeah.
Like, let's go.
Yeah.
They're like, "Okay, George W. Bush." I'm like, "All right, that far. Let's settle in. I'll get another pint."
We celebrated the 4th of July. We hosted a picnic at a campground that we were staying at. And so it was the 4th of July. There were British people there. And so we got into a fight because 2 of the guys kept calling us the colonies. And I got drunk and kind of lost my shit on them. And it just felt so appropriate.
Yeah. Just Jen being dragged off back into the tube screaming, "Scoreboard, scoreboard."
Pretty much. I think I literally did say scoreboard.
I would pay so much money to watch you fight British people and Europeans for America's honor. This is something that I want to see this so bad.
Yeah, there was a lot of laughs about like how awful both sides are. So yeah, it was a good time though.
From Austin, Texas, I'm Justin Robert Young, and back in studio in Austin, Texas.
Yes, I'm Jen Briney.
From Edinburgh, Scotland,
I'm Andrew Heaton.
and we're not wrong. On this edition of the program, we are going to be talking about Mark Robinson. 2 very, very, very different MR politicians. Mark Robinson and Mitt Romney. Mark Robinson, the lieutenant governor of North Carolina, whose porn past has come to haunt him. And then Mitt Romney, who told one of his biographers that he might move out of the country if Donald Trump wins the election. All that, plus your emails. Jen, you're back on set. We have my daughter will be 1 month old in a day, and now we've broken quarantine and you're back on set. How does it feel?
Am I the first one who got to see her?
No. There are the people that live in our neighborhood that have gazed upon her. But
You could have just lied to me and said, yes, I'm
yes,
special.
you are. We kept saying, when Jen sees, then the world sees. And lo, we are now going to break her out like Simba on Pride Rock to
As
everybody
it
else. You are the first person on set, though. Not that a lot of people come and do stuff on set, but
Alex
I'm
Jones.
very happy to have you.
Yeah, I met her before Andrew. That's all that matters.
That's true.
You know what?
Yeah, she's beautiful.
If I can't be the first person to meet your daughter, I'm going to be the last person to meet your daughter. I'm not coming to your house for 3 years.
I would love a bedraggled figure emerges from the shadows as a 31-year-old Bella is.
Well, here we are. Finally happened.
Yeah, it's nice to be back. It's fun to see you guys in person.
Yeah, absolutely. And Heaton will be back soon, so the band will be back together
I'll be
at
back
least for a
there
moment.
next week, jet lagged as fuck.
Excellent.
Hell yeah. Well, let's talk about somebody else who hasn't had a good week. Mark Robinson, who has faced calls from top leaders in the North Carolina Republican Party to prove his innocence regarding allegations linking him to a salacious online past. However, it doesn't appear that he's going to be able to do such. Politico has found that IP addresses tied to Robinson accessed a pornography website by the name of Nude Africa
For the articles.
near his home in Greensboro, North Carolina, as well as an email linked to various dating sites. Despite denying these claims, Robinson's campaign has suffered multiple resignations. He continues to face mounting pressure from GOP leaders to substantiate his denials, while his gubernatorial campaign struggles to regain momentum, and the controversies have led to reduced financial support. All of this comes after CNN uncovered dozens of posts that Robinson made to the Ebony amateur pornography site we previously named Nude Africa over a decade ago. Robinson made inflammatory comments on the message boards, referring to himself as a black Nazi and endorsing slavery. CNN's investigation identified the post as his by matching biographical details, various different turns of phrase, and, as we mentioned before, Politico pointed out the IP addresses. Robinson denies the accusations, claiming that they are fabricated despite the mounting evidence. Heaton, who among us hasn't tanked their political career for the love of posting?
Yeah, so I saw this come out of the screaming blue about 3 days ago. I think I'm like most people that I didn't happen to know who the lieutenant governor of North Carolina was. That was not something that was on my radar. And started reading the screen captures of what can only be described as a 15-year-old writing erotic piss literature, I guess. Have you guys actually read any of the extended diatribes that he had up on there? Because they are really arousing. They're awful. They're awful. I went through several things in my head at once when I started reading his stuff. The first reaction I had was, this is so over the top. Maybe it's a hit job? And then started looking around and went, no, the evidence is pretty good that it's this guy and not a large international conspiracy. And then I thought, okay, maybe this stuff was taken out of context, because I do think that the legacy media does tend to be more scrutinous of Republicans than Democrats, and so perhaps some bad faith efforts were taken out. And so I went with just a cursory search, was able to find three dumpsters of bullshit that this man has been trekking around verbally over the last 10 years. Like, at one point, he was on Facebook posting about how Bill Cosby had been framed by the Illuminati. And I read that, and I was like, the Illuminati doesn't even exist. So, that's clearly nonsense. And, I think it's nuts. I've got three thoughts on this.
Okay.
The first one is, a couple. I don't know Mark Robinson, and he is, of course, entitled to his rejoinder to all of this, although he doesn't seem to have one. I doubt that he is a maniacal actual Nazi. What I think he is a incredibly puerile provocateur, which has figured out how to make an entire political career out of throwing bombs that really piss people off. And that brings me to my point. I think he's indicative of
saying the thing. He is very adept at saying the thing that gets the reaction, which in a bygone era made you a message board troll, and in our modern world can make you a viable political candidate because you can get small dollar donations for saying the thing on a regular enough basis.
And that's what he is. He's a message board troll. He's saying offensive shit for the fun of saying it, or to piss people off, or as a propulsive mechanism in his own political career. I'm not saying he's a good guy in any way. I'm just saying I don't think he's some sort of Nazi ideologue that sits down and really pores over the thoughts of Himmler or whatever. And I see him as indicative of two things. One, mouthful term, apologies, schismogenesis. This is something that I'm increasingly aware of in American political discourse where...
Sounds like something he would write about.
Yeah. Schismopenesis, more like. But no, schismogenesis is this idea of I'm going to form my opinions in opposition to you. And I think that this is the candidate for that. If you really just hate Democrats, I can kind of get how you'd like Mark Robinson because he's going to make their heads explode. But he's still an awful candidate. He's a really, really dumb guy. Like this is not the guy that you want to get behind. And the other thing that strikes me of this is I think that this is what you get when the head of the Republican Party's sole criteria for assessing other candidates is how much they're willing to fillet him on national television. If the only factor that you're concerned with is, does this guy say nice things about me, you're going to get a guy like this that flies under the radar with the standard bearer of the party, which is what happened.
Yeah, no, loyalty is the number one thing. We can get into Donald Trump's horrendous coaching tree in a second, but Jen, Mark Robinson.
Yeah, why are you pro Mark Robinson, Jen?
Noted Mark Robinson advocate, noted Nude Africa enthusiast, Jen Briney. Your take.
Yeah, I didn't know who he was until yesterday, so there's that. I had no thoughts on him. I wasn't paying any attention to this, but when you sent me the information, like, first of all, CNN, their article bent over backwards
to prove
that this was him, to the point that it was boring. They had so much evidence. It's like, okay, I get it. It was him. Like, let's move on. Tell me what he said. And I'm very hard to offend, and he offended me more than once.
Yes.
Like, his comments were horrific.
What was the number one? Jeez Louise.
The one that sticks with me is when he said he'd prefer having Adolf Hitler as president as opposed to Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Then he also, the slavery thing too, where he said that some people should be slaves and that he would buy one.
He'd buy a few.
Yeah, I was like,
or when
shit.
Asked about retrogressing to the 1930s when black people were lynched and women weren't allowed to vote, his response was, well, the women not voting was good. Like that, yeah, there's plenty of
there's a lot
heinous bullshit to wade through. Also, again, the whole Illuminati framing Cosby. I'm not saying I'm in the Illuminati, but if I was, we didn't do it.
I didn't go that deep down the rabbit hole. Like, in just the CNN article, like, I saw enough. But I guess just knowing that he's a Republican candidate and that he was behaving this way on a pornography website and he had paid for an abortion, all these things, like, there just seems to be a lot of instances where we have these people that are so harsh on trying to prevent other people from doing these things, from getting abortions, from seeing pornography, and then all of a sudden, like, that person gets caught having done the exact thing that this party is against. And I just think politically he's just another example of hypocrisy in that party. But bottom line for me was, wow, this is a really bad person, and I really hope that he doesn't win the election. Like, this one's an easy one to take a stand on.
Yeah,
he's 10 points behind. Yeah. You're good.
He was 10 points behind before this.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, yeah. No,
If he wins, we should kick North Carolina out of the Union.
If
this is what makes him win.
Here's the problem. He's said enough stuff on the record into microphones in this current time period that when that stuff came out, K-File at CNN went over and beyond to prove that this was very much likely his account. But it wasn't a shock because it wasn't like he was a quiet church-going man and then all of a sudden this shocking, crazy past comes to light on Nude Africa. He was a dude that if you're like, hey, he was a message board troll on an amateur pornography website, you'd be like, yeah, tracks. Yeah. Absolutely tracks.
Everything
totally
I know
tracks
about him.
That he would be that dude. The way this story broke was fascinating too, because the story isn't what broke first. The story that broke first was the Trump campaign pressuring him to drop out because there was technically last week when this story broke, if he had dropped out by the end of the night, they could have still technically put somebody else on the ballot, although it wouldn't have been on the ballot because those were already printed, but technically it would not have been him. He decided to stay in, and that was that. But that's the story that broke first, was that Republicans in North Carolina, the new head of the Republican Party, Michael Whatley, comes from the North Carolina Republican Party, so I would imagine that he was probably leading the charge on something like this, or at least heavily involved. But then the K-File story breaks, and you're like, geez Louise, you use the same username like throughout your entire life, including the one on Nude Africa.
He labeled some of these accounts with his actual name.
Yeah. His actual name. They did, because he's one of the people that was leaked from Ashley Madison. They can look at the password on Ashley Madison. It's the same password as on Nude Africa. It's the same email address. Yes, the guy's an idiot.
He is a horny man. Mark Robinson is a horny dude. That's for sure.
Taking the Mark Robinson out of the story for a second,
how horny he is,
and all of the
virile, boiling horniness of Mark Robinson,
the horniness, the racism, just all of it. One part of the story that did catch my eye, though, was something that Andrew just said, that they were matching his passwords from different sites because of all these different data leaks.
Yeah.
And I am kind of cynical because I don't think that I have put anything terrible out on the internet, but I am kind of just we've had so many instances where our data has been leaked by companies that we all use, and I don't really think anything of it anymore. But this was just one of those instances where you can kind of see how it can hurt you in your real life.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that was just like a fascinating underlying story that I don't think anyone is really focusing on. The way they were able to match all these things to him, it was a lot of leaked data. It wasn't really public stuff.
A premise I've long had for a techno-dystopian fiction story is just one day all of iCloud messages are leaked and it's searchable on the internet.
Oh,
wow.
That would be bad.
That would just rip society apart.
That would be it. That would be. We'd be like, listen, can we all just say the purge is the way to sort this? Like, this is the only way we're gonna get out of this.
Just like we would need actual we would need things that would reframe society because we would hate each other so much. It would culturally reshape all of the world. If everything we've said privately just became searchable in public.
I think
for
with
sure.
Robinson, I think he's a profound moron for all further statements on Mark Robinson, but I think there might be a generational element here as well, in that he's 10, 15 years older than we are, which means that he's very active online, but he's not an internet native, as we are certainly people younger than us are. So, for example, I have some app on my phone I downloaded years ago where it automatically deletes all my tweets after 6 months and all of my Facebook posts after 6 months, because I don't want anything taken out of context 3 years from now that I have to explain, well, that word at that time, and I don't want to deal with any of that.
What I meant by I would buy some slaves is...
Yes. And like, if people are going to come after me, I want to force them to listen to my show where they actually have to hear my opinion rather than like an out-of-context tweet. And he's not doing any of that. But I think a lot of people are more careful. Like when I post on Nude Africa, the stuff that I write, I wouldn't be embarrassed about. Is it about pissing? Maybe it is, but it's very elegant in terms of the prose, and it's everybody's aware of what's going on, and so I
wonder what his wife thinks of all this, because she was outed as having had an abortion and her husband was on Ashley Madison. And she's been conspicuously silent.
According to him, in these various screenshots, he is regularly having piss-related sex with her sister. Although, based on everything I know about him, I suspect that could be a fun,
Hyperbole.
erotic fantasy that he is putting out on the message board of Nude Africa.
Jesus.
By the way, the message board is closed. In case anybody has been listening to this story and they're like, wow, this Nude Africa sounds like a really, really fun place. Unfortunately, it is closed to new posters. So you have to be a legacy member to get onto Nude Africa.
Yeah, all of this was like a decade old.
Yeah.
Which was
it
interesting
was all
too.
before he was political too, which is another thing. Like if this had been from one site that no longer exists, and it happened with a guy that had been a political candidate for a really long time, I would be more inclined to go, well, there's a lot of money in this election, that kind of thing. But as it is, where this is going back to 2014, and he doesn't even become a political figure till 2018, it just seems very unlikely that the Illuminati, which doesn't exist, that we would try and frame the guy.
There's a million things that you can say that Mark Robinson did wrong. I would say from the point that he was at last week, number one, you should probably drop out. If you care at all about either your party or anything like that, you should probably drop out because you're not going to be viable.
But he's
If
a
you're
bad
not-
person.
If you're not, you can't run away from it.
Yeah.
Like the opportunity that he had when Arnold Schwarzenegger ran for governor of California, a man who lived about as colorful a life as you could possibly ask for, right? When he was asked, hey, well, what about drug use, steroid use? He was like, all of them. Every drug. I did every single drug.
Yeah. And we loved him for it.
I am copping to it. They're like cocaine. Yep. Heroin. Yep. All of it. All the steroids, all the recreational drugs. I did them all. I don't do them now. Boom. Now you're gone. He had an opportunity to say, look, this is a really mean game. I said a bunch of really colorful stuff. I wouldn't say it now. Now that would kind of be hard to wash out considering he said some really wild stuff in the last year. But still, you can't run away from it because now he stayed in the race. Half his campaign quit on him. His donors aren't going to give him another penny. So he's basically just going to be riding around in a pickup truck doing campaign events by himself with a one-man band. And that'll be that. And you don't even get the chance to make any kind of point.
Too late for me to run as a Whig Party candidate in North Carolina? Because I feel
believe
like I
so.
could do. Damn it! This would be really fun.
I know you have a natural connection to the people of North Carolina. We
It's
always
true.
say that.
Yep.
That you and the Tar Heel State, the old
from
tobacco
the great
growers.
city of Raleigh to Winston-Salem, I love every square inch of that wonderful nutmeg state.
Not quite.
Wait, I got a comment and I got a question. I want to tee off of something that Jen said. This is incredibly embarrassing for the Republican Party. And I don't mean to say that Mark Robinson is emblematic of all Republicans. I don't think that. I think that there's a lot of really intelligent, really, really good people in the Republican Party, and it's incumbent upon them to absolutely throw this guy under the bus. This is such a easy layup to show that you can be sane. That this is the kind of thing where the National Governors Association and the RNC should go vote Democrat. They should just flat out do it as a way of showing that there's some sort of quality control mechanism at present in the party. And if they don't do it and they just go, well, maybe, then it makes everybody else go, maybe it is the nutball party. So I wish the Republicans would.
I don't think that they have to say vote Democrat. I think that what they have done so far is to say that he is not being supported by the party. Every major figure that's been asked about it has denounced him and said that he is unfit. I mean, Lindsey Graham was on Meet the Press saying that he was unfit for office based on things that have come out. Of course, they caveat it with if it's true, right? But, I personally don't think that if the point of a party is to benefit the party, the one thing you don't do is say, please vote for the other party. But you can stopping short of that, you can say, this dude is out of there. Where I do think that it is emblematic of is Donald Trump's horrendous coaching tree. And this is not, in the world of football, which Heaton, I know that you are deeply passionate about.
Go Tar Heels.
There are some
Tide.
coaches that are great at making other coaches, right? Kyle Shanahan, somebody that wasn't thought to be a greatest coach of all time, and yet he has created dozens of other people that have had great success. Bill Belichick, thought to be the greatest coach of all time, He could not create another coach to save his life. Everybody that worked on his staff that got another job sucked. And part of the reason is that some people are just singular forces. Donald Trump is a singular force. He's very rich. He had no experience in politics. And yet he's an extraordinary hard worker who has maybe the best sense of media and public relations that we have ever seen in the history of our modern politics. And so what happens is you get a lot of people with Dunning-Kruger that look at him and say, oh, I'm him. I say the thing that gets everybody's tongues wagging.
I'm a flaming
no
asshole gargoyle. I'm sure this will translate.
And so they they love Trump, and so they revere him. They go to Mar-a-Lago and they say, Jesus, you've walked into my life. Thank you, Donald Trump, for existing. And he's like, this guy seems great. He says the thing. He's kind of like me, without realizing that Donald Trump is very unique. He is extraordinarily unique. He is the defining figure of our modern political age, like him or not. And you get a lot of Mark Robinsons, you get a lot of Dr. Oz's, you get a lot of Herschel Walkers, you get a lot of these candidates that just suck. They have no political experience, they fold under pressure, and they have these huge liabilities that come along with outsized personalities that aren't backstopped with Donald Trump's ability to just tweet through it. He's unique. Mark Robinson is not. He's just a dime store, horny asshole.
I got a question for you, Justin. How did the Democrats miss this? Because in looking at the articles by both Politico and CNN, this is not a criminal mastermind who came up with, I don't know, using a username other than every other username he has. Like, it's the same on Twitter as it is on half a dozen other things. You could literally just search his username on the internet and find half this stuff. So how did that not happen?
Did they miss it? Or
Yeah, I mean, it's out.
Did it come out when it needed to come out? Closer to the election than earlier.
Yeah.
Because if something like this happens earlier, then maybe there is a more concerted effort to move him off. The reason
but no one did it when he was running for lieutenant governor? Was it just too low a priority that no one even bothered doing a Google search?
I don't know exactly how this kind of stuff comes to light. I don't know if it's another Nude Africa poster who just kind of knew that it was this dude and then eventually leaks it. Who knows exactly how this comes to light? Who knows where it gets into the hands of political operatives that eventually shop it to CNN? I assume that's what happened. I don't think that K-File at CNN was a avid Nude Africa denizen that was like, hey, this guy sounds like Mark Robinson. So I don't know. There's a lot of people that get paid a lot of money to dig up a lot of stuff. Yeah. And sometimes those people are beyond the pay range of sub-governor statewide offices.
That could be. I mean, I don't, despite my incredible, passionate love affair with North Carolina Go Tides, I don't actually know a lot about the power invested in the gubernatorial office. And so like in Oklahoma, from whence I hail, the lieutenant governor is really a mascot for state tourism, and it's their job to wake up and see if the governor's dead. And it's really not, I mean, it really is a ceremonial role for all intents and purposes, which could well be North Carolina as well.
Jen, anything else on Mr. Mark Robinson? By the way, we didn't get to the fact that he was extraordinarily opinionated about Martin Luther King.
Yeah, that one did stick with me, but I didn't want to repeat the name that he gave to Martin Luther King, so that's why I didn't bring that up.
It's the one that the racist says in the movie in the 50s.
It's so racist.
Yeah.
It's so racist. So, he's a really bad person, and if I was in North Carolina, I would vote for anyone else.
Yeah, I think, man, people should be more thorough when they were looking at this guy. Like, for example, I'm a member of an organization. I'm not going to say what it is. It's a very powerful organization. And one time we decided that we were just going to wreck this prominent African-American comedian's career. But you know what? We did our fucking homework. He deserved it, what we did to him.
Patreon.com/we're-not-wrong is where you go to support the show. This week we'll be talking about Olivia Nuzzi, RFK Jr., and ethics in journalism. It is the sex scandal that finally a Kennedy sex scandal for the TikTok age. We get into it on the Patreon episode of the show. And more journalism talk. I know Jen's thrilled. More journalism talk.
You promised me there's going to be nudity in that conversation, right? Because sometimes you're just blabbing about newspapers, but there's going to be tits.
Demure nudity. There is. There is indeed demure nudity.
That Gen Z bullshit word. I'm so tired of hearing demure. I feel so old about it. Yeah, I'm so elderly about it where someone says demure and they like smile. I'm like, you're young and dumb.
We're certainly carving out our little age demographic here, aren't we?
For sure.
Let's talk about Mitt Romney, another thing that old people do. Old Mittens is nearing the end of his Senate term. He's keeping a low profile and avoiding involvement in this year's presidential election, aside from saying that he is not supporting Donald Trump. At 77, he is ready to enjoy something that he has not, and that is retirement, with his family, including 25 grandchildren. The Mormons get it done, dude. In an interview with McKay Copkins, who wrote a biography about Romney, Romney said he was considering the policy of relocating out of the country if Trump wins for fear of prosecution by Donald Trump. I forgot where I went before. I think I went to Heaton before. Jen, this is the I'm going to move out of the country if my preferred candidate loses season. Do you have any favorite example of pledging to leave the country if your favorite candidate does not win the binary election?
I do. And I don't know if this was the targeted question or not. I'm curious.
No.
Because the example that I have in my head, and this is embarrassing, is me. Like, did you know that?
Yes! I sunk her battleship!
Okay. I was curious if you knew or not.
No, I had no idea. It all makes sense.
Yeah, the second George W. Bush win
04.
freaked me out. Yeah, in 04. And so Joe and I, and like we wanted to travel anyway.
Where were you living at the time?
So at the time we were living in Los Angeles where we had graduated college. Mm-hmm. He was in a job he hated. I was in a job I hated. And we were both just trying to save enough money to get to Europe as fast as we could.
Yeah.
So,
regardless of the political utility of John Kerry.
Well, he had already lost.
Oh, he had lost.
Yeah, so W won the second time.
Yes.
And that's when I was just kind of like, fuck this country.
Did you brag, did you say it to everybody that you knew beforehand that if George W. Bush wins re-election, I am leaving the country?
I said it to enough people to make this embarrassing. Yes, I did. I was quite reactionary because at the time, like, I don't know if you guys realize based on like who I am now, but I was not political at all. Like, people that knew me in high school, if I ever do have another high school reunion, they would never guess that this is what I'm doing for a living. This just didn't match my personality. The reason that this happened is in 2003, I was studying abroad in Germany.
Yeah.
And that's when we started the Iraq War.
You had a political awakening in Europe.
I did. And so once I got back to the United States and was seeing things differently, I just really wanted to go back to Europe. There's also things about Europe that I really like, and to this day I still like a lot more, most notably how walkable everything is. I didn't have to drive everywhere. I really fell in love with that. And so I wanted to go back. I knew I wanted to go back. And then when W won the second time, I was like, I don't know. I don't understand how in the fuck people in this country can vote for this guy again after what he did in Iraq. Like, to this day, I still don't understand how
Safety
people
moms.
condoned that. But yeah, so after that, we went to Europe, and now turns out that Europe doesn't really want poor people. So our plan of going there and getting visas and staying and working, they were like, no, you have no skills and we don't need you. And so that's how we ended up in Hawaii. We had 1 week left on our tourist visa. We couldn't find a way to stay. And so we went to Hawaii because we could physically work there, but it felt different. But yeah, I tried to get out. But in those months that Joe and I were in Europe, one of the things that I saw in that trip was a lot of the stuff that I was concerned with here. I mean, it really, if I had to boil down what I think our main disease is, I would call it corporatism, where I think that these giant companies, which are more powerful than countries in a lot of instances, have really infiltrated our government, our politics in some very problematic ways. And I was seeing the same thing in Europe. And at the time, I was seeing it, like physically seeing it. So one example I have, and actually I think you guys were there with me, there's this bombed out church that I really loved in Berlin.
Yeah.
And the first time I had gone there, there was this beer garden and it was kind of out in the open. And then every single time I go, there's more stuff that's built up there. It's more corporate, to the point that when the three of us went, there were giant signs advertising McDonald's and I think it was KFC and maybe Burger King. But I was so pissed about it. And so I was just seeing this corporatism. I was seeing more and more of these companies that seemed to be taking over all of our small towns, taking over European town squares. And I realized that a lot of the problems that are here in the States, these are global. And so I'm less desperate now to like get out of America and like escape to anywhere. And I don't think that Trump is going to come after me. I never thought that George W. Bush was going to come after me. I'm not that big of a deal. But I definitely had that urge to just get the fuck out when I didn't understand what was happening in this country in 2007-ish.
Heaton, aside from Jen Briney in 2004, what's your favorite threat to leave the country if a presidential election doesn't go their way?
I mean, Jen Briney 2005 through 2006 is, of course, the
high watermark. Now,
after that,
I thought for sure you were aiming this right at me.
Hell no.
I was like, I must have told him this.
my favorite, and I don't have a particularly strong opinion on the person I'm about to mention, but I read a headline in 2016 from Lena Dunham, where Lena Dunham threatened to leave the to leave the country if Trump won, that she would deprive us of her company and move to Canada if we were foolhardy enough to vote for Trump. And that struck me as really funny, because when she was like, I know a place in Vancouver, my attitude was like, I'm not entirely sure who you are, but fine. Like, I'm not. Yeah. I don't care so much about you that I'm going to change my voting habits in order to preclude you from depriving us of you. Which is, I think so there's in this conversation about I'm going to leave the country, I think that there's kind of silly reasons to do it, and there's good reasons to do it. So the silly reasons to do it are like, I'm threatening people to vote my way or I'll leave in a huff, which I think is ridiculous. Like, maybe
it's hilarious. Yeah, it's amazing. It's my favorite thing in the world.
Taylor Swift did that, maybe it would affect some things, but I think for most people, we'd go fine. The other thing that I kind of roll my eyes out is there's lots of really good conversations we should be having about policy. There's lots of really good arguments we should be getting into about how to run the country and how to help people. I am there for that, and I applaud people on being passionate about those things. We need that passion. But I think that there's a lot of people that are – it's more of this kind of spiritual repulsion of, I cannot stay in England if a Catholic sits upon the throne. Yeah. Like, it's this kind of abstract thing, and that I kind of roll my eyes out when we get it. But at the same time, though, like, if people want to leave, I'm all for it. Like, I've been thinking a lot recently about right of exit, and I think that is a missing piece from the current political puzzle that we've got. If you look at the United States military, officers can resign their commission at any moment. They're accepting orders. They're part of a big mechanism. It's not a democratic body at all, but they can always leave if they want. And I think that should absolutely be there. I think that the bigger and more robust your government is, the more you should be able to leave it if you disagree with it. And so we ought to have ways for people to get out of the country if they truly don't like the direction of it.
I mean, they can. You know, there's a great moment.
Really? Where do they go? Because I struggle to think, like, you can't just walk to Canada and go, I'm angry at the United States, and they go, here's your passport. Like, I'm not sure.
No, but that's a Canada problem. That's not an us problem. You can still walk across.
Yeah, we can leave.
Yeah, you can leave, but that's the only thing that America can control, unless you're arguing for America to strong arm other countries to allow Americans
to take our trash.
Yeah. like please, Luxembourg, if you don't allow Alec Baldwin in, we'll bomb you.
Well, then in that case, I would say the harder it is practically to leave, the more reserved you should be in forcing people to do things. But I like the idea more of there being a right of exit.
But again, you can leave America. Now, whether or not you have to renounce your citizenship to not pay taxes, which is a different thing, but you can leave at any time. There's like a great moment in the Rick and Morty cartoon where the dad is put in a daycare with other variants of himself. And he's like, screw it, I'm leaving. And the woman at the desk says, that was always allowed.
Wait,
and so it's like when everyone's like, I'm leaving the country. I'm going to England. I'm going to France. I'm going to Canada.
Bye.
Always allowed. You're cool.
Wait,
no, please go do
on.
it. That's
Functionally, though, like this is something that like free enterprise people like me get. We have to kind of think about where, no one's making you get a job, but you're going to starve to death unless you get one. Like, functionally, you got to go get a job, right? So, like, functionally, you can't leave. Like, you theoretically have the right to leave, but there's nowhere to go, so you can't use it.
But who's...
What are you talking?
Wait,
like,
yeah.
I could move to Spain today.
And live there and work there?
Yes, 100%. They have a digital nomad visa. I qualify for it. I could go today. Like, there's so many avenues for you to leave if you want to.
Okay, then I
My
retract what I said.
wife's a citizen of the EU now, and the reason why it took so long was because Croatia doesn't exactly move at lightning fast speed in processing forms.
Yeah.
You know what?
Or just like visa hopping.
insofar
As an American, we have so many contracts with so many different countries that you can easily visa hop and never step foot on American soil again. So it's like we can go to the UK. I think it's 6 months.
6
We
months
don't even
out
have
of a 12-month period,
6 months. You don't need a visa. You can do 3 months in the EU. Then you can fuck off to Australia for I think 6 months. Mexico is 6 months. Like you can just keep going around the world.
Now here's the key: you
Okay.
kind of need money, right?
Yeah.
So you do need some seed capital to do it, but at the same time, I don't think that America is onerous in keeping people here. And if anything, if you want to go internationally, then where does the responsibility of the United States end in you being able to do it? Again, do they need to strong arm other countries to allow you to stay there and work there longer? Or
No,
can they just say
merely
you
a
can
reflection?
leave?
If there was no functional avenue of exit, I would be much more hesitant to force people to do things. But it does sound like what you're telling me that there is an avenue of exit. So perhaps it's overstated.
Yeah, you can get out, but the taxes are what people mainly bitch about because it's
you would need to
really
renounce
hard.
your citizenship to do it.
Yeah, like you still have to pay your federal taxes, which is a lot if you're not stepping foot in America ever again. So that's what people renounce their citizenship for. But if you just like don't want to be here, that's pretty easy to do.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the thing with American citizenship is it does offer pretty good privileges.
Sure does.
So, like, you kind of don't want to do it, and at the end of the day, it's like everybody paying taxes. You're just like, wow, this is annoying. It's kind of it's a really high, costly subscription, but it does have its perks here and again.
Well, and they have a lot of deals too where the governments have worked out like if you're paying federal taxes in America, then that gets credited to basically like the taxes you would pay in Spain. So if you're, you get that credit and then you just pay whatever over because like the taxes are higher in Spain. So you're not basically getting double tax to where you're getting 50% is taken by Spain and then America takes 30 and then you're left with whatever. Like, it's not like that. So they actually have done some work to make being an expat possible and affordable.
Somewhat. I mean, my understanding is that there's a minimum threshold you have to hit before you're paying federal taxes abroad at all. So if you're earning, $50,000 a year, $80,000 a year, and you're not living in the continental United States, you're not paying federal taxes, which is good. But there are instances where you get caught up in it. So like, FATCA, which was one of Schumer's brainchildren 10 years ago, made it so that if your combined household is over a certain income threshold, everybody in the household has to pay federal taxes. So if you as an American marry a Canadian and you are earning $30,000 a year as a substitute teacher in Canada, but your husband who's never even been to America, or your wife who's in Canada has never been to America, and they're earning $200,000 a year, then you get double tax because you go above that. But I will acknowledge that's a fringe case.
Damn.
But hold on, I want to bring this back.
This is a
do we
tax
need to
on
worry
polyamory.
Do we need to worry about Mitt Romney? Is he okay? Do we need to worry about him?
No, he pushed back on this immediately and said that he was joking when he said that he was going to leave the country.
Wasn't his dad from Mexico?
He was born in Mexico.
Yeah.
That was a mission thing, though.
Yeah.
I believe.
Still.
In the same way that John McCain was born in Panama, that kind of phenomenon.
Yeah, we survived
that was a military thing, yeah.
When the Romneys were in Mexico, we were okay. I think we'll survive again.
I got kind of excited because I thought maybe
I
thought maybe Romney was going to have like an island that he purchased for the Never Trumpers, And I was like, I'd check that out. Like, I don't know. Like, if he's got like some little Caribbean island that the Republicans in exile will form a little contingency on, that'd be interesting.
Oh, my God.
Oh, God, it'd be insufferable. Like the Romneys and the Cheneys and the Bushes. Fuck that. I don't want to go to that party. Especially now that Bush is a teetotaler. He's not even fun anymore.
Romney described his feelings in D.C. as feeling trunky, which apparently is Mormon slang for when you're on mission and it's about time for you to go home. You start feeling a little trunky, like you want to pack all your shit.
He seems more. He doesn't seem scared so much as just deeply frustrated with all politics at every conceivable level. Like, everything I've read about him over the last year is that he is just utterly racked of hope and joy in his job.
Yeah.
I get that. I mean, he tried. You have to give it to the man, whether you like his politics or not. He tried. He tried real hard, up to the point of, like, being the presidential nominee. And so to not only see the country not go in the direction he wants, but then see his party become a clown car in just a few years, like, it's got to be really demoralizing to dedicate your life to something and have it go all wrong.
Mitt Romney is an extraordinarily interesting figure. I always wind up going back to this when I was selling the Contender card game at Politicon in Los Angeles one year. We were right across the booth hallway from Turning Point Action, and this is years ago. Turning Point Action has become a much bigger organization since then. So this is more when they were a little bit scrappier, grassroots, very, very much run by college kids. And the college kid that was across from the booth, like what happens in a convention, you tend to become friends with the people around you, and you're like, hey, I'm going to get coffee. Do you guys want coffee? Like that kind of stuff, just so everybody can stay there and hawk their wares. And we wound up getting to talking afterward, and he's like, I'm like, oh, how'd you get involved with Turning Point Action? And he's like, Mitt Romney. I was a moderate, and I thought that nominating a moderate would bring more Democrats over, because that's what they always say, is that you don't want these ideologues, you want a moderate. And so the Massachusetts moderate, the model of it is Mitt Romney, and he was so demoralized, he was so demonized, he became Mr. Burns, he became the worst person, the most religious person to ever run for office, and he's like, that's what black-pilled him. And he was like, no, there's no peace, there is only war. We need to fight fire with fire, and we can't give any inch to the other side.
Well, yeah, having lived through that election, there's a lot of truth to that. And I think about it a lot, where the way they talk about Trump now, that he's the threat to democracy and he's, tax cuts for the rich and like all these things, they said the same shit about Mitt Romney, and it just wasn't true. And it's just like, you can't keep saying this stuff over and over and over again, because then when the actual threat shows up, you don't know what it looks like, because you say it about all of them.
But the Democratic Party says, but what if we could?
Could what?
Just keep saying it.
Yeah.
It seems to work 1 out of every 2 elections.
No,
just keep saying it.
It's a real shame. Mitt Romney's a really nice guy. We're actually both in an organization. It's not important which one it is. It's kind of philanthropic. But, we hang out at these meetings occasionally. And he's a sweet dude. He didn't deserve to get railroaded like that.
We're Not Wrong Pod at gmail.com. Pierre Delecto and Perry. We're Not Wrong Pod at gmail.com. Southwesties Rise Up writes, after the inspiring banter on your last soiree, I too felt compelled to join the group enjoying the rarefied air of shareholder class with a single share of Southwest Airlines.
Jesus Christ,
can you please point me in the right direction to collect my top hat and monocle?
You guys are too much.
This is great. We're gonna you all understand. We're gonna have a club of people that just listen to We're Not Wrong, who own stock in the Southwest.
We're gonna have a hell of a happy hour at the shareholder meeting. It's gonna be our own little convention. The Pineapple Ranger writes, 400 meters is the standard size for a track and field track. The world record is 43.03 seconds. My fastest 400 time came when I was training for Ranger School at 55 seconds. So, Heaton, if you're running a 40-second 400 in cowboy boots in a soggy Scottish field, I recommend you join the local running club. There is the added benefit that most over 30 running clubs double as swingers groups.
Well, hey now. I wasn't that. I at first kind of felt like I'd already blown that out of the park, but this swingers thing, I'm always looking for good extracurricular activities and new organizations to join, so maybe I will.
Well, at least they have stamina.
Yeah.
How writes, as an official citizen of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, that is 1/32nd. I discussed it with the other Indians, and we are affording all of you the T-word pass. That was in our reference to teepees.
Oh, okay. I saw this yesterday, and I came up with a bunch of T's, all of which were offensive. It was like, I don't think that's what we were talking about, though. So appreciate that. Thank you very much. And also, Choctaw Nation's a beautiful part of Oklahoma.
On Trump's second assassination attempt, Tonight at 11 writes, I very cynically believe that Justin is right in that attempt is not being talked about because it's perceived as something that would help Trump. Never mind that it is news, the thing that the news is supposed to cover. I also believe that it's not being covered because this time it's more ignorable. The shot fired when he's on stage live, covered by the news, can't be ignored. The near shooting at the golf course can. If the first attempt had been similarly ignorable, it would have been. Look at the jacked up headlines that ran immediately after.
I don't think he's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only salient thing that you can do from here is like, do you think that we would still be talking about this attempt if it were on Kamala Harris?
Yep.
Because I think that we would.
Yes, we would.
Probably, but if it was the second attempt on...
I think we would be talking about it way more. If she had 2 attempts on her life?
Yeah,
probably. Are you kidding?
Yeah,
we're still
probably.
talking about the dipshits outside of the Capitol that had the hang Mike Pence prop. Like,
that's true.
Like we're still talking about that like it was an active assassin that was hunting him down through the halls.
Every time I see a picture of those gallows, I get so angry because it's just 3 pieces of plywood. They're barely even like lined up properly, and it's the shortest noose. Like, it was never a real thing, and they act like, oh, they were gonna kill him if they got the chance. Like,
it's like, you've never been to a protest. You've never been to a protest. People bringing that kind of edgelord shit to protest happens at
all the
every
time.
protest.
You all know that Australia lost a prime minister one time. Have we talked about this?
Yes. In the sea.
Yeah, Harold Holt just went swimming, never came back, and they don't talk about it. It blows my mind. Like, if Jimmy Carter had gone swimming in the Potomac and never came back, that would be the entire History Channel. All we would talk about is Carter conspiracies. They just don't give a shit.
I think we're on the final days for Carter to hit the century mark.
Oh, is it almost his birthday?
Yeah,
I'm rooting for him.
Would he be the first president to hit the century mark?
I think so.
Don't know.
Because the old ones didn't really live that long.
October 1st.
Ooh,
so
come on, Jimmy.
By the next episode, we will know whether or not Jimmy Carter made it to 100 or if he Betty Whited our ass and died like a day before.
Yeah, once he gets to 100, that's like negative points in a death pool.
Yeah, you start getting charged.
Yeah. Like, you don't even want him on your team.
No. You got to put him on the waiver wire.
Bunch of people are about to cut Jimmy.
Exploding Pagers writes, Israel is a terrorist organization. Writing, Israel is a terrorist organization. As you imagine, these emails were just a delight to sort through. Wrong Airport
Wait,
writes,
hold on.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I want to take on this one because
Okay.
Israel is a whole country, and the way that it was formed and the way the Palestinians are treated, obviously, we know I have problems with it all. But Israel's also been around for 75 years. There are generations of people who have been born there and had nothing to do with that and don't want to slaughter all the Palestinians. They don't approve of their government. They are marching in the streets. So to say Israel as the entire entity is a terrorist organization, that's not fair. It's not right. And I think saying this hyperbolic stuff doesn't help the cause of trying to stop the war in Gaza.
Heaton?
Sure.
Wrong Airport writes, when Jen said Trump assassinated Soleimani, Justin and I both said hell yeah at the exact same time in the exact same tone. Hell yeah.
Did you actually say that? I
hell
didn't
yeah.
hear it. Okay.
Yeah. No. He killed a lot of people in Iraq, outside of Iran. You know, sometimes you get blown up on the tarmac of an Iraqi airport.
That's
right.
that's what the song says. That famous song.
Yeah. Yeah. I have no
Bob Dylan,
I have no sympathy for Qasem Soleimani.
I don't either.
Whatsoever.
I mean, I think the point that I was trying to make there is that that was a risky thing and could have risked another war, but I'm not,
the one
throwing
thing
a
that I
funeral
would
for the
say
man.
for both the terror that happened during the first Trump administration, or what might be the first Trump administration, of his foreign policy was rattling the cages of superpowers that we have been led to believe were really, really, really potent and on the edge of unleashing World War III, that might have been revealed to be a little bit more paper tigery than our assumption of it was. Because I was terrified sitting in Tokyo reading Donald Trump on Twitter goading Kim Jong-il to, hey, fire your weapons, pussy. I fucking dare you. I dare you to shoot your weapons. Because I'm like, I don't think he can get missiles to America. He could probably get missiles to Tokyo. Mm-hmm. And that's where I am right now. I was terrified by it. As we found out, Kim Jong-un, sorry, not ill. Kim Jong-un probably was more, he was pushed to a point in which he wanted to talk diplomacy, and it turns out he didn't really have much capability to fire missiles. We took out Soleimani. There was a thought that Iran was going to loose regional war. They didn't do shit. In fact, they haven't done shit now. I know. With, the Mossad blew up the head of Hamas in like the
at the presidential ceremony
at the in the garage of the presidential headquarters, and they haven't done shit, right? So I don't know. That is up to the smart, pointed-headed people in the world of international statecraft. Vote or Die writes, Israel is absolutely a democracy. About 20% of the citizenry is Arab. Yes, but they have equal rights, including voting rights.
That's only if you're counting the people within Israel's proper internationally recognized borders. But let's leave Gaza aside for a second. The West Bank is completely controlled by Israel. It has an occupation there, and there are millions of people that live there that do not get votes. And as long as that is the case, I don't think it's accurate to call that a democracy. And by the way, using those same exact standards, I don't think we're a democracy, because there are millions of people that live in Puerto Rico and Guam and the Mariana Islands and I think the Virgin Islands that are American citizens and don't get to vote. And so that's why it's like when we go around the world lecturing everyone about democracy and saying everything we do is about democracy, it rings so hollow, not only to me, but to people all over the world, because we aren't living up to the values that we say that we do. And neither are our allies.
Yeah, I didn't engage this last week. We got a lot of email about it because I don't think that it was germane to the point that we were talking about. And especially when we get into anything about Israel and the Middle East, I want to be very specific about the conversations we are having and the conversations that we are not having, because it can very easily spiral into a lot of different directions. And I think it deserves careful focus when we are talking about things carefully, because it is a very, very important place where we're talking about. My point with the democracy thing is that, and I'm glad you pointed out, hey, look, this is a larger distinction of if you control something functionally, whether or not it is a designated protectorate, or in the case of the West Bank, where the citizens don't want to be Israeli citizens, they want to be Palestinian citizens. So, but should you afford them a vote if they are under occupation? Larger question. I will say that Israel is the closest thing we get to a democracy in the Middle East, because that really isn't the thing in that region. They don't really do anything close to representative parliamentary democracy outside of Israel. And that is where I will leave that. Heaton?
Sure.
But why, writes, what value does having a democracy in the Middle East have for America? Shared values, I guess, theoretically. But if you are, and I think Jen is right to cast a scancy pants eye to the claim of believing that the world is better should we install democracies as opposed to theocracies or autocracies around the world. If you do take that elementally seriously, then this is a very, very rare thing that has happened in a region that is largely hostile to that situation.
There's a long-standing, I think now largely forgotten belief that democracy will geographically spread through osmosis, and that if you have a democratic country, it will stand out as a beacon to authoritarian regimes. And I think that's been pretty well disproven by now. That if that were the case, then Central and South America would have, through osmosis, eventually reached some sort of stability akin to the United States, and that the neighbors of Iraq like Iraq itself and the neighbors of Iraq would have eventually come over. I think that there's two different issues that are being investigated there. One is moral, one is pragmatic. Are we in other countries in terms of supporting or hindering them, funding them, defending them? Are we there out of interest for the United States and stability as it pertains to the United States, or are we doing it because we want to make the world better? And these sometimes are contravened. A lot of the time, they're the same thing. But like, I'm over here in Britain right now, and I would say that America should not have been supporting the British Empire when it was around the world. We did that because we had cultural ties with them, but I don't know that that was really in our best interest. And so a lot of the time, we're having two different conversations. Like McCain, when he was running, he wanted to form an alternative brand or an alternative body to the United Nations that would just be like a league of democracies or something like that. That's more of a moral aspiration, but it's not a pragmatic one.
Yeah, and going back to my thesis that the people in charge of our government don't give a fickety fuck about democracy, when I look at Israel, I look at a map. And so if you're sitting at home, check out a map. If you look at where Israel is located, you look at the Mediterranean Sea and then the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea, and connecting all of them is the strip of land known as Israel. There's an oil pipeline that goes from the Mediterranean Sea into the Red Sea. There's a company, I believe it's called the Europe-Asia Pipeline Company, something like that, but it's all in the name. And so it's being used to transport oil. And then when it just comes to international commerce, that particular piece of land, even if you take all the religion and stuff out of it, that piece of land is very valuable for us to have allies with, because it makes our international commerce much easier to have a friendly nation there that you can move stuff through.
Finally, the enemy of my enemy writes, man, I'm not a fan of the Israeli government. Can we not carry water for Hezbollah? Is that too much to ask? The whole area is an unstable cluster, but there's no need to defend one bunch of violent theocrats in order to smear another.
Yes, and this one's aimed at me. Listen, Hezbollah is firing rockets into Israel. It is indiscriminate. They don't know where the fuck they're going to land. No one is carrying water for Hezbollah. What I was saying is that Justin brought up one specific instance. It was a rocket that hit a soccer field in the Golan Heights, which, first of all, is not inside Israel. That is inside of Syria. It is another area where Israel has been occupying. No one in the world says that that's Israel except for Israel and the United States. And even the United States, we didn't say it was Israel until the Trump administration. So that rocket landed inside of Syria. That was one problem. The other problem is Hezbollah is pretty consistent in claiming the horrible shit that they do. And they said that they didn't fire that rocket. They said it was an IDF, an Iron Dome thing that fell into the soccer field. All I was saying is that there's a question mark on that one specific event, because there is. And I checked it again after saying that, because I didn't want to be carrying water for Hezbollah. But on that one specific event, we don't know exactly who did it. That's just a fact. But when it comes to Hezbollah itself, there are people within Lebanon who do see them as resistance fighters, but it's never okay to be firing anything at civilian areas and not knowing where those are going to land. It risks women and children and babies, and this is why there are tens of thousands of people in Israel who haven't been able to go back to their homes in the northern part of the country since October 8th. It's all tragic, and it all needs to stop. So, yeah, I'm... End of rant.
And then I have another thing here about healthcare stuff, but I think that that's an email to an email. So I'm going to disqualify it. Unless you guys want to do it.
I could skip it.
Okay, we're skipping it. We're Not Wrong is a production of Dog and Pony Show Audio. Our editor is Will Saddleberg. On PX3 this week, I talked to Mr. Beat. He is a big political YouTuber. He's got over 1 million subscribers. He has done he's a former social studies teacher. He has done a song for every single president. He is a guy who got his start because he was just making videos for his class, and it eventually became his living. It is a great conversation about online internet discussion about politics and everything around it. You can check that out. And then on Friday's edition, I'm going to be doing a little bit of debate prep. I'm not doing a whole thing of debate prep for Tim Walz and J.D. Vance, because I don't think that this is going to really matter all that much.
I didn't know there was a debate.
Next Tuesday. But I will watch J.D. Vance's debate with Tim Ryan from the 2022 cycle, and whatever debate I can find with Tim Walz, just to give people a sense of what you can expect next week. That is on PX3. Oh, and Jeff Maurer talking about comedy and politics.
That guy?
He mentions you too. He says that he hangs out
What
with
did he
all.
fucking say?
He says he hangs out with all a bunch of big lefties except for Andrew Heaton. And then I said, you know, you're just going to give him a fucking complex, and now he's going to have to explain for the next 30 minutes about how he's not what you think he is. He's not like other girls. He's a totally different, super not a right wing person. And so there we go.
Well, let me just say this: I don't like Jeff Maurer, but I respect Jeff Maurer. My so-called friend Jeff Maurer. He's very funny. You should listen to Justin's show. Jeff Maurer is a national treasure. Horrible man, but a national treasure.
He's a good dude. Heaton, Orf, what up?
I have on Kevin Williamson on the program this week. Kevin Williamson was at National Review for a while. He was briefly at the New York Times. He is now at the Dispatch. I find him to be a very interesting thinker. And I kick it off with two questions. One, he just got back from Ohio to find out if people were eating cats or not. So I had to ask him, are they eating cats? You have to listen to my show. You know, I'm not going to tell you here whether they're eating cats or not. But then the other question, which leads into a lot more big picture stuff, is I ask him, how do you think people in the future will look back on this particular era of American politics? And we go from that into how the parties are realigning, the things that are changing about Republicans and Democrats, and it's a good 1,000-foot view of what we're going through at the moment.
Nice. I look forward to listening to it. Jen.
So on Congressional Dish, we have had a goal, which is by October, to have a study guide for people so that you can go and look at some single issue bills where it's very easy to figure out what they are and then to see how your member of Congress voted for them. We have a bunch in the House. Don't have a ton for the Senate because the Senate didn't fucking do anything for the last 2 years. But our study guide is almost done. So by the time you hear the next We're Not Wrong, we should have that out. So the episode is going to be me just running down all the bills for you real quick. But really, this one is all about the show notes because that's where you can find the links to all of the bills, all of the votes, make it nice and easy so you can judge the job performance of your member of Congress.
There we go. And that'll wrap it up for us today. For Jen Priney and Andrew Heaton, I'm Justin Robert Young, reminding you, dear listener, that we're not wrong.
All right, should we just plow forward?
Cut the shit, listener. Yeah, you want to roll?
Yeah, let's roll.